Alex, thank you for joining us here at New Mexico in Focus.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get started on your role in the U.S. Attorney, take me back to where you grew up and who was your family and how did you get here?
So I grew up in the Bay Area, California, to an immigrant mother and a father who's a high school graduate from East LA. Most of my family on my father's side is still in LA. He grew up in Lincoln Heights there and went to Lincoln High. My mother was born in China and so immigrated here when she was about 7 years old. They met in LA. My dad was a musician, he was a rocker. My mom was a costume designer. And so they met down there. They moved up to the Bay, where I was raised in the Bay Area, from Martinez and then high school in Oakland.
Your father you said he was a rocker, but he was a legend to East LA Chicano history. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Happily. I'm just so proud of my dad and the things that he has done in his life. It's incredible how much you get done at such a young age just by being creative and passionate and community oriented. He was born in the projects in downtown LA, actually the William Mead Housing Projects, Vadio Dogtown they call it. Then grew up in Lincoln Heights, where he started a band. He taught himself how to play guitar by watching mariachis play. He put together, and he just has this amazing creative mind for melody and for composition. And so as a teenager, he was organizing and running these bands out of East LA, teaching them how to orient their instruments and their sound. And so he was a part of this band called the Romancers. He was the lead. And out of the Romancers sprung many of the bands out of East LA, but he had his finger on so many different historic moments in Chicano rock out of East LA in the 60s. And it's just incredible hearing the influence, in his music and down the road. He's an icon down there.
And how did your mother, in her history as an immigrant, come into the States from China, how did that shape you when you get into law?
Sure, there's a lot to carry, when your folks come from overseas or over a border, and you're the first and only attorney in the family. And so, ironically enough, the conception of what lawyers do to my folks was very much like you go be a lawyer, you're a professional, you go make money, right? Like you go to law school and you get a high-paying job. And it was a thing that really confused them. When I came out of law school and took a job here for the DA's office, making $32,000 a year. And they're like, we don't understand. Why was this what you did? And this doesn't make sense to us. And so having parents who don't come from professional backgrounds and being the first to wear a suit regularly and have a professional title has been an interesting line to walk for me.
Now, New Mexico is one of the poorest states in the country. It's got deep entrenched inequalities. What attracted you to this U.S. Attorney job?
Well, I'll start with what attracted me to New Mexico, and it's my wife. She is part of two generations deep New Mexican families here. And we've been together since we were 19. We met in college. And so ever since around then, I've been coming out here with some regularity. And then we moved here in 2011. Now, how I ended up as U.S. Attorney has been a crazy path. It's really sort of a series of accidents. Having no guidance in my family on what it means to be a lawyer meant that I was often forging my own path. And when I ended up in law school, I really didn't have a sense of what lawyers did other than make money. And so when I got there, there was a lot of soul searching in finding the profession that would coincide with my morals. And that's where I struggled the most, which was, and I think this is an affliction of the legal profession broadly, being a lawyer means you represent a single client, be it an individual or a company, and you represent them at the expense of everything else, right? That is your job. You are their voice in courts and through the papers. And I struggled there, right? Because I'm oriented towards the community. I became, I've succeeded, I've studied, I've graduated, and I've sought jobs because I care about the community. And something in that role didn't square with me. So when I ended up in law school, I did a lot of learning about what lawyers do, about what the legal profession is, and then about how I can fit the legal profession into my morals and my beliefs. And so I ended up as a prosecutor first, through the mentorship of a couple folks in my law school who showed me that as a prosecutor, and as broadly in government service, what you do is serve the public. You have one client, but that client is the United States, right? It is all people, and as it comes to prosecutors, what it means is I represent not just the interests of the community broadly, but very specifically the interests of everyone in the courtroom, right? So as a prosecutor, I walk in and I represent the jury, I represent the judge, I represent the defense attorney, and I represent the defendant. And so for me, that realization of, as a prosecutor, I wear all hats simultaneously. As a prosecutor, I am a public defender first. What I do with every case when it comes in is I review it for legal sufficiency, right? Is there elements of a crime? But beyond that, I review it for constitutional violations, right? Has this person's rights, the defendant's rights, been violated? And I review it on top of all of that for justice. And that is the most important component of being a prosecutor, which is our discretion to charge or not charge, to use the tools that we have to seek charges, to seek prison, or to seek other alternatives. And so making all of those decisions really puts me in the seat of a public defender first, and then I go into court and advocate once we've indicted someone or charged someone. And so the path to finding prosecution and government service was one of exploration and learning. And that's finding my passion in it. One thing I found out about myself is that I'm really bad at things I don't care about. And conversely, I'm good at things I do. And so what I've always done is follow the passion, which is tied to my community and tied to my morality. And it's led me here to this seat where I feel like I'm best expressing those abilities and those values.
You come into the office at a time where law enforcement across the country aren't reporting their crimes to FBI. New Mexico is no different. We have a number of law enforcement agencies that not only not reporting their FBI crime, but their hate crimes. What can we do to compel some of our local agencies to give us that data? Because you can't decide policy without the data.
That is critical. I couldn't agree more with you about that. One thing that I've prioritized, in this position and throughout my life, and that has moved me forward amongst, in the profession to the position where I am today, is the building of networks and teams and communities. Right, and so when I say that I do it all for the community, it includes the community writ large, as all of us in New Mexico, all of us in the nation, all of us in the world. But it also includes smaller communities and networks that make this thing work, right? And so that includes the law enforcement community. One of the things that we need to do is work in closer partnership with our local law enforcement partners and elected officials to make sure that we are working towards the same goal. One of the things we've done in my office since I came into this position was expand the amount of contact we had, just pure contact, with local law enforcement around the state. And the goal of keep getting everyone on the same page and moving forward to the same goals. To that effect, what we've done is create a liaison program. We have liaisons, AUSAs, federal prosecutors in my office who are responsible to go out to build relationships with local DAs, local sheriffs, local law enforcement, so that we can best fulfill their needs, we can best support them as partners, and they can do the same. And so I think for me, while there are always alternatives to compel people to do things, the better alternative is always to convince people to do things because it's the right thing to do.
Now, the Trump administration halted DOJ reviews of police departments. The Biden administration came in, restarted reviewing cases of pattern and practice investigations. And stats show that New Mexico has one of the highest rates of police shootings in the nation. Many of them are Latino and Native American victims. What can your office do to address this? As the Biden administration has been very clear, we want to review police, make sure that everything's done up to par, but if their investigation is needed in a possible consent decree, they will pursue it aggressively. What can your office do in that space?
Sure. We've, as you know, partnered in a consent agreement. Partnered in investigation and then in settling a consent agreement with the city of Albuquerque for many years now, relating directly to a pattern and practice of excessive use of force. We are unique here in New Mexico in this department in that we play an active role in partnering with DOJ, both on the investigative side and throughout the pendency of the consent agreement. This is pretty unique for us. Because this is our community, we have always had the stance here in the United States Attorney's Office of New Mexico that we should have a voice, those of us who live here, should have a voice in how those investigations are carried out and how the consent agreement is pursued and implemented. And so that has been our consistent stance throughout the 9 years of our consent agreement, with a constant attorney in our office, and often multiple, entered in that case to move it forward. And so that is our approach, which is very New Mexico unique, and in pursuits of and in furtherance of the Biden administration's policies here.
Murdered and missing Indigenous women has been something you've been passionate about and you've spoken out here. Is there anything else that we can do besides a public education campaign to really address it? We've had a lot of tribes here in New Mexico. It's still a concern. Our tribal governments are short-staffed with police as everybody else. Is there something else that can be done in that front?
Yes, I think there's a lot that can be done. And there's a lot that we're doing. So one of the things that we always need, every agency you always hear, is more resources. So one of the things that we have done is advocate at Maine Justice, and we have received a large number of additional positions to come to our office. 5 of those, I think actually 7 of those new positions are slotted for Indian country because of the need in that area. One of those, and I announced this a couple months ago when the Not Invisible Act Commission was meeting here in Albuquerque, one of those positions is a missing and murdered Indigenous persons coordinator, a regional coordinator. And so this is an attorney, an AUSA, whose job is really unique, and there are 10 of these around the nation. That job is to coordinate efforts across all law enforcement agencies, across states and districts, to make sure that we are catching every name, right? We are catching every missing relative, and then we are investigating and pursuing each one of those names and people on that database so that we can find resolution and answers for their families. And so the number one thing here is coordination and the sharing of information. Here in New Mexico, we're lucky because the FBI, in conjunction with all of our law enforcement partners, put together a database. It's the first in the nation. It covers all of New Mexico as well as the Navajo Nation. And it's a database of missing and murdered Indigenous people. With this public database, what we've been able to do is lean on the resources of many, many agencies, often whose networks and platforms and computers don't talk to each other. And by making a public-facing internet website, people have called in tips, people have called in information, and they've been able to remove a large number of names and, of course, update and replace over the past year. And so it really is coordinating the efforts, making sure everyone is sharing information, and then, of course, making sure that somebody is paying attention to the names on the list so that nobody is forgotten.